Tonight, we have a senator who has been digging into the events and before January 6th. Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar, welcome back. Good to have you, Senator.
Thank you, Chris.
Are we aware of whom the lawmakers are that are of interest in this investigation?
No, there's been rumors, but as a former prosecutor, you wait for the evidence. And I think one of the things we learned from Director Wray this week at the Judiciary Committee is there's an extensive investigation, hundreds of thousands of tips, over 200 people charged this time. And obviously they need to look at not just who was there, but who planned it and who was involved in it. So I don't know where that will lead, Chris, but it has to be able to get to justice. We've got to put an attorney general in, and Merrick Garland has committed to taking on these cases in a big way. And then meanwhile, there may be ethics issues in front of the ethics committees for both the House and Senate. Well, that is the way this should be handled.
7 Senate Democrats want an ethics investigation reportedly into Hawley and Cruz for inciting riot. Do you agree? Will it happen?
I don't know what the Ethics Committee does because they do it in secret. But I think anything that leads you to think someone is coordinating with these insurrectionists, it should be investigated. I just don't know the facts. And what I do know for sure is that somehow this was coordinated. We know that already. There was a recent complaint in Washington State where the Justice Department said for the first time when prosecuting one of the leaders of the Proud Boys that this was a coordinated attack. Through the committee hearings that I've chaired with Senator Peters and Senator Portman and Blunt, repeatedly every law enforcement leader has said that this was coordinated and planned. Well, that means it's planned on the ground, but it also means and begs the question, who is funding them, who is coordinating with them, and they must get to the bottom of it.
You know, listening to the hearings and then doing an analysis of them, Phil Mudd, who is a counterterrorism expert here at CNN now, put a question in my head that I can't figure out the answer to, but I do think it's important. January 5th, they had the planning meeting. The White House was supposed to be at that meeting. Do you know if they had representation at that planning meeting on January 5th for how to deal with the next day and what they said was needed?
I don't know if the White House had people there, but what I do know is that there was multiple reports going into this. The Capitol Police themselves on January 3rd said that there were tens of thousands of people that were going to descend on the mall. There was an FBI report of raw intelligence the night before, January 5th, from the Norfolk office, which made it very clear that they had reports that people were going to go to war, that they were going to go after Congress. The New York City Police Department gave intelligence in December that they were concerned about this date. And so one of the questions we have kept asking is why didn't this get to the right people so they were better prepared? And of course, 3 people, leaders in law enforcement, have resigned over this, and we now have a new sergeant at arms. You can't have a police chief leading into an event that is not able to get the National Guard as reinforcement. And the day of the event, we now know that he was trying to call the sergeant at arms, and they were, of course, trying to protect the members. Complete chaos. And then the final, just worst fact is that for 3 hours, the head of the D.C. National Guard had to wait to get the authority while we were all watching on TV. These insurrectionists breach the police line, break the glass. The Defense Department still didn't give authority. So there's plenty of blame to go around. My focus is not really that as much as how do we fix it going forward.
Right.
So we have a better structure, so the intelligence gets to the right people, and so that we have the ability to get the Guard there when they need them.
Right. And just to be clear, there's now more reporting that makes it a matter of fact that the former president says he asked for 10,000 National Guard. He was going to make that happen. There is no proof of that. And now Joint Chief of Staff head Milley says he never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
And he would have. So
remember, what we know is that the president was literally refused to put out tweets telling the rioters to get out of there and instead commended them.
Right. Now, on the relief bill, my suggestion at the top of the show is why even pretend that you can work with people who are working for your destruction and giving comfort to terrorists? They don't want to work with you. They want to get rid of you as soon as possible. Use reconciliation, get rid of the filibuster, and do what you guys promised to do.
Well, I favor getting rid of the filibuster. I think we have too much we have to do for this country. And as I was listening to you, I thought to myself, so what Joe Biden pledged here was to represent all of America. Democrats, people who voted for him, Republicans that voted for him, of which many did, and Republicans who didn't vote for him. And if you're going to do that, and if that is your guiding light, well, then you have to get something done on the pandemic. You've got to get the money out for distribution. He's now up to over 70% more vaccines getting distributed than the first week that he came in office, and is now pledged to get enough available vaccines for every single adult in America by May. That's extraordinary. But to do that, you need funding. And so I look at it this way. He wants to work with Republicans. I have a good track record of working across the aisle and considering continuing to do it. And you can do it on certain things, but when it comes to this pandemic right now, you can't mess around. You've got to get the funding out there, and you've got to make sure our economy is strong so that when the moment comes that we are ready to bounce back, we are there ready full throttle to do it, and we're not on our heels in a deep recession.
Right. Oh, look, Ron Johnson is proving right now where their heads are at. His only position is opposition. He says this is to be more deliberative. Nobody's debating right now. He's just running a stunt. This is who they are. And here's the forecast forward on it. You can do this for reconciliation. You probably won't be able to do H.R. 1 through reconciliation. And that bill is arguably the biggest pledge that your party made to its constituents. If you don't pass that bill, there is a good chance there'll be about 250 laws across this country on the state level that makes it harder for folks to vote.
Exactly, Chris. And one of the things that happened after we won Georgia, after the people of Georgia decided we want change, is that I took over the gavel of the Rules Committee. That is where that bill is headed. For the very first time, we're going to be able to have a hearing, and Senator Schumer is on that committee with me. He's a big proponent of this bill. And then even if it's a 50-50 split vote, he is able to then bring it to the floor of the United States Senate. And this is what this party has done. They lost the national election. Okay. When parties lose elections, what do they usually do? They reflect, they look at what policies they can do, to bring forth to reach out to people, what they need to do to best message their policies. Do you know what these guys are doing right now? They're doubling down at CPAC, and they are, in fact, right now saying, you know what, we can't win with the existing electorate, so why don't we disenfranchise people, allow less people to vote? It's a raw abuse of political power with these over 200 bills that are being introduced in states across the country to limit voters. Voters aren't going to have it. They voted in droves in this pandemic, even in the middle of the biggest public health crisis that we have seen in decades. They came out in droves. And so that's why H.R. 1 is so important. It's about the long-term problems with gerrymandering and campaign financing, but it is also about making it easier for people to vote, not harder. And that's why it has to be such a major priority. And we are having our hearing on March 24th, and that bill is going to the floor.
The question is, what happens once it gets there? Senator Amy Klobuchar, thank you very much. You're always welcome here to argue the case to the American people.
Okay. Thank you, Chris Cuomo.
Be well. We're getting closer to midnight.